Thank you very much for joining us. Let's now turn our attention to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where a Russian drone attack on Odesa injured 8 people and damaged homes, a medical facility and a warehouse, according to regional officials. In Zaporozhye, overnight strikes caused a fire at a petrol station. The assaults followed a deadly missile strike in Sumy, where 34 were killed and 117 were injured in the deadliest attack in Ukraine so far this year. Meanwhile, Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski condemned Russia's missile strike on Sumy, calling it a blatant mockery of Ukraine's ceasefire proposal and a dismissal of US diplomatic efforts. Speaking at a EU summit, Sikorski urged President Trump and his administration to recognize Putin's actions as hostile and to respond with appropriate and decisive measures. Here's what he said.
We're going to discuss, but right now I think we have to put the maximum pressure on Russia to really end this war, because it takes 2 to want peace. It only takes 1 to want war, and we see that Russia really wants war. And all those who want the killing to stop should put the maximum pressure on Russia. Thank you.
Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas urged for maximum pressure on Russia to end its war in Ukraine following a missile strike on the Sumy region. She stressed that peace requires effort from both sides. Here's what EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas had to say.
We're going to discuss, but right now I think we have to put the maximum pressure on Russia to really end this war, because it takes 2 to want peace. It only takes 1 to want war, and we see that Russia really wants war. And all those who want the killing to stop should put the maximum pressure on Russia. Thank you.
Moving on now, the European Union is stepping up its support for the Palestinian Authority with a major $1.8 billion package over 3 years aimed at financial aid and key reforms. The move comes as EU officials eye the Palestinian Authority as a potential governing force in Gaza post-conflict. Meanwhile, a significant diplomatic rift. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has slammed Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's criticism of French President Emmanuel Macron's push to recognize a Palestinian state, calling it an unjustified attack and a rejection of peace efforts. On the hostage front, fresh hopes emerge as, according to reports, Hamas may now be willing to release more hostages under a new truce deal, with US pressure mounting for an agreement by this month's end. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed that talks are focused on the release of 10 hostages in the current phase. A Hamas delegation is expected in Cairo soon for key negotiations with Egypt and Qatar. We stay in the Middle East, where Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is set to travel to Moscow to engage in discussions concerning the recent nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran, which took place in Oman. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson confirmed the visit, stating that it was pre-planned and would serve as an important opportunity to assess the latest developments emerging from the Muscat talks. At the same time, European powers will be cautious about these negotiations. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot emphasised that France, along with Britain and Germany, will closely monitor any discussions between the US and Iran to ensure that they align with European security interests, particularly in relation to Iran's nuclear programme. Barrot's comments were made as he arrived in Luxembourg for an EU foreign ministers meeting, highlighting the ongoing international concern over the nuclear talks. We move to the Indo-Pacific now, where Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim announced that he will meet Myanmar's junta leader Min Aung Hlaing this week in Bangkok. The meeting, set for Thursday, comes as Myanmar's military chief makes a rare trip abroad to discuss earthquake relief efforts. Anwar, who holds the rotating chairmanship of ASEAN, emphasised that the focus of the meeting would be to ensure the safety of Malaysian aid workers in Myanmar following the devastating earthquake on March the 28th that killed over 3,600 people and left millions in need of assistance. While the ASEAN bloc has barred Myanmar's junta leaders from participating in regional summits, following the 2021 coup that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi. Anwar's talks with Pyongyang will be conducted in a bid to extend a ceasefire that was announced after the earthquake. Anwar hopes to secure an extension beyond the April 22 expiration as ongoing humanitarian efforts continue in the disaster zone. Mario Vargas Llosa, the legendary Peruvian novelist and winner of the 2010 Nobel Prize in Literature, has died at the age of 89. A central figure in the Latin American literacy boom, his works explored the deeper struggles of power, violence, and political turmoil that shaped the region. Through novels like Time of a Hero, which challenged military corruption, and Conversations in the Cathedral, which exposed dictatorship in Peru, Vargas Llosa became a defining voice in the continent's literacy movement. His political journey saw him shift from left-wing ideologies, growing disillusioned with them, and then running unsuccessfully for presidency in Peru of 1990. He was a controversial and compelling figure, both in literature and politics. Vargas Llosa passed away on April the 13th in Lima, leaving a lasting legacy behind. We move to Europe now, where Spain's Coast Guard rescued on Sunday 50 migrants trying to reach the Canary Islands on an inflatable boat. According to the Spanish Red Cross, the migrants, which included 45 men, 4 women and 1 minor, were taken to El Rosario port in Fuerteventura Island in the Coast Guard vessel due to heavy rains in the past few days. The boat was located 144 kilometers off the island of Lanzarote. Reportedly, the Canarian arpeggio is still struggling to absorb an all-time migration peak from 2024, although irregular migration has slowed down by 28% this year. The Atlantic route is especially dangerous, as the ocean's rough weather can easily capsize the fragile rafts and dinghies used by most migrants. Well, that's all we have time for. We will